All right, today we're jumping into a really big idea, actor network theory, and we're going to use Bruno-Latour's incredible book as our guide to reassembling the social. So, let's kick things off with a statement that is, well, let's just say it's a bit of a lightning rod. Back in 1987, the British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher said this, and it kicked off a political firestorm that's still burning today. But what if I told you that one of the most radical sociologists of our time completely agrees with her?
Yep, you heard that right. Bruno-Latour, one of the key minds behind actor network theory, starts in the exact same place. But, and this is the absolute key, he gets there for totally different and, you could argue, much more interesting reasons.
This is the central question we're wrestling with today. See, we usually think of society as this giant, invisible thing, this background context that we're all just living in. But Latour wants us to entertain a much wilder idea. What if society isn't the cause of what we do, but the consequence of it? What if it's not a noun, but a verb?
So, this surprising agreement between a conservative politician and a radical sociologist, that's our way in. It's the key that unlocks a whole new way of seeing the world, and it forces us to rethink what the word social even means.
To really get this, we need to lay out two fundamentally different ways of thinking about the social. One is kind of our default setting, the way we usually think. The other is the path Latour wants to take us down.
Okay, so on the left, you've got the traditional view, what Latour calls the sociology of the social. In this version, social is a specific type of thing, a special zone, separate from, biology or economics. It's the background context you use to explain why things happen. But there on the right, you've got the ANT approach, and here, social isn't a thing at all. It's just a word for a movement, a process, the process of tracing connections between all sorts of things that on their own aren't social at all.
So the old view looks kind of like this. Society is this big container, and inside it, you've got all this other stuff floating around. Law, science, economics, even us. When a sociologist wants to explain something, they just point to the container and say, see, social forces did it. Society is the big, easy explanation for everything.
The ANT view comes along and just smashes that container. It says there is no container. The social is nothing more than the web of connections itself, this constant, messy, active process of linking things together. You link a law to a new technology, which is linked to you, which is linked to a virus, which is linked to the market. The social doesn't explain the connections. The social is the connections.
Now, Latour himself admitted the name actor network theory is, and I quote, horrendous, just terrible, but he loved the acronym, ANT. Because he said it perfectly describes what a researcher is supposed to do, act like an ant. You can't see the big picture. You have to be nearsighted, a total workaholic, and just follow the trail of connections, one little step at a time, and see where it takes you.
Okay, so how do we actually start thinking like an ant? Latour gives us a few rules of the road, and rule number 1 is this: go find the controversies. Go where people are arguing. He's saying, forget about starting with these neat, predefined boxes like the middle class or the corporation. Instead, you have to start with the messy, loud, ongoing process of how groups get made in the first place. You have to watch people as they're actively drawing lines in the sand, fighting over who's in and who's out. And this kind of thing happens literally everywhere. When a company tries to create a shared corporate culture, that's group formation. When people debate whether the Hutu-Tutsi conflict was about ethnicity or class, they are actively negotiating what those groups are. Even those silly flame wars between Mac and PC fans, that's what Latour calls techno-fanaticism. It's people performing and defining their group identity. The whole point is, groups don't just exist. They have to be built and rebuilt all the time.
All right, on to rule number 2, and this one really messes with our basic idea of what it means to even do something.
Latour has this brilliant phrase for it. He says that action is always overtaken. Anytime you try to do something, you are never the single author of that action. You think you are, but you're not. Think about just sending an email. You write it with one intention, but a typo changes the meaning, the server delays it, the recipient reads it in a bad mood. Suddenly, your simple action has been overtaken by a whole crowd of other agencies, pulling it in directions you never intended.
So how on earth do you figure out who or what is in that crowd? Well, you go to the ant. You follow the actors themselves, and you just listen to their own explanations for why they did what they did. Your job isn't to be the smarty pants who says, well, actually, this is what happened. Your job is to take their story seriously, no matter how weird it sounds, because it shows you one of the many forces that's acting on them.
And this gets us to a totally new definition of an actor. In actor network theory, an actor isn't the heroic source of an action. It's more like a moving target. It's a point where a whole swarm of different things, human and, this is so important, non-human, all come together to make something happen.
Okay, so we follow the trails, we see that action is super crowded, but what's the actual tool we use to trace these connections? This brings us to maybe the most powerful and useful concept in the entire ANT toolkit, the difference between intermediaries and mediators.
An intermediary is simple. Think of it like a pipe. It just transports something from point A to point B without changing it. An order, some data, a message. What goes in is what comes out. It's predictable. It doesn't really do anything new.
A mediator, on the other hand, is where all the magic happens. A mediator takes an input and transforms it, translates it, messes with it, and creates something new. Its output can be totally surprising. It's an active player in the game. It changes things.
I mean, just look at the difference here. An intermediary is a straight line, predictable. A mediator is like a little explosion of new possibilities. Here's an example. A sign that says slow down is an intermediary. It just passes along a command. But a speed bump is a mediator. It actively translates the goal of slowing traffic into a physical experience that changes your driving, the traffic flow, the noise level. It creates a whole new situation. And for Latour, the world is just packed with these surprising, game-changing mediators.
So when you put this all together, you realize that the whole goal of sociology has been turned upside down. The point is no longer to stand on the outside looking in, trying to come up with some big, abstract social explanation for why everything is the way it is.
No, instead the job is to get your hands dirty, to get down in the mess and patiently, like an ant, trace all the surprising links and connections that are constantly building and rebuilding our world. The goal is to describe the network, not to explain it away with something that isn't even in the network.
And that's the final thought I want to leave you with. If you were to use this way of thinking on your own life, starting right now, what would you find? What unexpected non-human actors, your smartphone, the layout of your kitchen, the weather outside, the algorithm that showed you this explainer, are actively mediating your world and making you who you are? Once you start looking for them, you'll see they are absolutely everywhere.